Okay. So I'm sure you watch Rick and Morty. If you watch this show, you probably know what Rick and Morty is. You probably watch it. I mean, because it's it's intelligent but still accessible enough. You know. But there's this one episode I was thinking about earlier today. It's the one where they go and get the death crystals, and Morty holds on to the death crystal, and he just keeps focusing on this future where he dies with Jessica, his crush. And in the process of doing this, Rick ends up getting killed. And the DNA gets taken. Morty takes the DNA from the body of Rick Sanchez and plugs it into the car as Morty goes off to do his own thing and find a way to end up dying with Jessica. But what happens to Rick is he keeps getting recycled through his Phoenix program. And if you remember the episode, Tiny Rick episode, he had all these vats that he kept clones of himself in. And apparently other versions of himself also had this Phoenix program. And so his consciousness, that particular consciousness of Rick, kept getting put into bodies of these other Phoenix programs in different realities. And almost every single one is a fascist dystopia. Okay. Each time he gets a new body, there's little differences and stuff like that. Sometimes he's a shrimp, sometimes he's a wasp, has a wasp body and stuff like that. It's a pretty funny gag because every single time it's like he gets into a new body. It's too fastidious. And he's like, nope, and then kills himself again to give it another shot. Or maybe it's just to kill himself, because who wants to live in a fascist dystopia? So I think it's funny because there's a scene where he's running away from all these shrimp Nazis or something like that. And he shouts out loud, wondering to himself, it's like, geez, when did this become the default? And I'm sorry to say, Rick, I mean, you should know this, is that authoritarianism constantly keeps raising its ugly head. All right. And so I want you to think about that and pray for our friends in Australia and in Europe. Because I don't know if you keep up with news that goes on in other countries, because there will always be people who want to be authoritarian. And that's why there are all these mask Nazis over the last year trying to tell people how to live their lives. There are tons of people out there that want to become want the world to become a fascist dystopia. All right. And fascist dystopias don't come about because somebody says, hey, I want to make a fascist dystopia. No, it's always some supervillain who thinks he's going to save the world with their idea of utopia. And so when it comes to the people in Australia being carted off to concentration camps, when it comes to the people in the Netherlands, walking around the streets and the cops are saying, do you have your papers? There's always going to be somebody who wants to be the power-grabbing authoritarians. All right? Europeans and the Australians, they don't have a Second Amendment like the U.S. has. Okay? So their government does not fear the people, and that's why they are getting away with this nonsense. All right? In America, and for the time being, the government is still a little scared of the armed populace, and you need to keep that in mind. That is the difference between us and them. I mentioned it, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. The American way is the best way. And it's because of things like the Second Amendment. All right? Because as soon as they try to tell me I have to show my papers just to go to the grocery store, that's a problem. That's a big problem. America should not be the kind of place that ends up going into the way of the fascist dystopia. All right? And I'm terrified. I'm terrified. I mean, it's one thing in Australia where, they weren't really involved in the Second World War that much. I mean, there's not a whole lot of resources in Australia, and Japan just never got around to invading. I think they tried. I'm not sure. They tried to. If they went after the Aleutians, why wouldn't they go after Australia? But in Europe, it seems to keep coming up. They had all these little balkanized nations all over Europe. And for centuries, there are kings and monarchs and emperors and stuff like that. And eventually some Napoleon comes around, or some Adolf comes around and changes the whole world, tries to change the whole world. All right? It's odd that Europeans haven't learned their lesson.